I'm Mom. I just finished filming a video for my BookTube Spin list 2. This is for BookTube Spin 4, and I was able to clear some room off my shelves, but y'all, I have so many newly acquired books. So it turns out that all the books in this recently acquired books are nonfiction, so we're gonna make this a nonfiction recently acquired books video. Let's start with baseball books. As you know, I have a little baseball section in my TBR shelf. My husband loves baseball, and so we talk a lot about baseball. A lot of things kind of come back to baseball for us. I recently read The Housekeeper and the Professor, and I had no idea, but that book has a lot to do about baseball, so I guess I kind of enjoy reading books about baseball. We recently got Baseball, An Informal History by Douglas Wallop, and this one I believe was at a book sale and has some very cool pictures. It was published in 1969, so this is definitely an older one, but one that could be quite interesting. Another baseball book that we got recently, this was, I think, from the Salvation Army, is You Gotta Have Wah, When Two Cultures Collide on the Baseball Diamond by Robert Whiting. The word wah, which means team spirit, unity, it's how Japan looks at baseball and how that differs from how America looks at baseball. We were just recently talking about how Japan was playing baseball when America was playing baseball during the Second World War, and how previous to the war there had been baseballers that came over from Japan, and then post-war or during the war, you know, those people were fighting. So they were playing on opposite teams in both respects, and then they were also friends and enemies. So it's really interesting cultural and historical convergence in a time in baseball history. I don't know if this book has anything to do with that, but I thought it would be an interesting read. Some other books that I'm probably not going to put on my TBR shelf, but that are nonfiction, is the Indian How book. Now, this is very racist and ridiculous. It's obviously very old and I'm sure very controversial. It would be very controversial now, although I'm sure it's probably not even published anymore. This one was published in 1927 and 1954. So you can see why this ridiculous title, totally outdated, totally problematic, is attached to this book. It was written by Arthur C. Parker. It has a lot to do with Native American culture, Native American history, and also Native American crafts. So it's mostly a lot about how Native Americans produced different things, built different things, and used different things, and then it also has some stories in there as well. So I thought this was an interesting one to read. We live in such a rich Native American area that really gets totally glossed over. Where we live is Lenape land. Most of New Jersey is Lenape land, and there's very little that I've come across about kind of reclaiming that land, but I have read some kind of histories of the Lenape people, mostly in the kind of fiction area, like fiction history. Although it was a terrible cover, terrible name, I wanted to pick it up and kind of see what it had. I'm probably going to put this in our reference books and craft books, not on my TBR shelf. I picked up The Education of a Little Tree, a true story by Forrest Carter, in a little free library recently. This is the true story of a Native American boy who was taken away from the Cherokee Nations and kind of had to navigate all the Native American history during his lifetime. So I'm really interested to read this. This kind of goes with the other Native American book, except this is by an Indigenous person. Another book that I'm not going to put on my TBR shelf because it is mostly written in Japanese is The Teachings of Buddha. I thought this was a very cool little hardcover copy of The Teachings of Buddha, and it is interesting. I've never seen a book quite like this where it has the English on one side and the Japanese on the other. So I thought it would be interesting to take a look at, if not actually read through. I just saw that it has an inscription in the front as well. I can't read it though. On the theme of nonfiction, I picked up Erik Larson's The Garden of Beasts, Love, Terror, and the American Family in Hitler's Berlin. I'm not super interested in World War II era things, but I do love Erik Larson, so I figured it was a good idea to pick up any and every book that I saw of his. Selected Drawings by Chinese Children. This also has a Chinese title that obviously I can't read, but I thought this was a very cool little book, again written partly in Chinese and partly in English, and it has all artwork and drawings from children in China. One of the books that I got at a local book sale is Selected Letters of Gertrude Bell, correspondence of the famous woman traveler and diplomat who played so large a part in the foundation of Arab Kingdom of Iraq after World War I. Wow, that's a big title. So these are letters of Gertrude Bell. She sounds like a really interesting historical figure. I don't know anything else about her, but I thought that this one was definitely worth picking up. Look at how serious she looks on the back cover. I'm not sure how relevant this nonfiction book will be anymore. It's called Faces of Environmental Racism, Confronting Issues of Global Justice, edited by Laura Westra and Peter Wentz. It was written in the early 2000s, so this might really be outdated, but it looks and feels very much like a poli-sci book for college or something like that, but it did have some interesting things in it that I wanted to check out. So I think this one will go on my TBR shelf. I'm not sure when I would get to such a heavy book, but worth at least trying. I haven't had much luck with nonfiction about food and Brooklyn. I read a really terrible book that comes under that category last year, but when I saw Brooklyn in Love, a delicious memoir of food, family, and finding yourself by Amy Thomas, I picked it up. I am a sucker for Brooklyn. I love Brooklyn. I lived there for 15 years, and I just, I like to read about it. At one of the book sales, I found The Cat Who Went to Paris by Peter Gethers, which is the prequel to A Cat Abroad, which I've had on my bookshelf for quite a while. So now I can read two books about a cat who travels the world. A nonfiction that I recently picked up at a little free library, and you can see it on my Instagram, is Psychic Self-Defense and Well-Being by Melita Denning and Osborne Phillips. This book seems totally woo-woo, seems totally out there, but also, from reading the back, kind of makes sense. It talks a little bit about how we are bombarded every day, all day long, by negative emotions, by negative imagery, by death and destruction, and how we can psychically defend ourselves from those energies. At my local library, which recently reopened, they always have a table of sale books, and I found this version of Agatha Christie's An Autobiography. Since I recently did an all my Agatha Christie's video, I wanted to show it to you here. This is one that I did have from that video that I got in a new version softcover, but I thought that this awesome lavender color and beautiful book was definitely worth showing. Lastly, last year, I picked up Becoming by Michelle Obama in a little free library. I didn't even get this book for me. I got it for my friend Isaac, and I'm not going to put it on my TBR shelf, but I figured it was a really good get in a little free library and worth showing in one of my recently acquired books. I never showed this one before because I actually put it in my car and totally forgot about it. It got buried under a pile of stuff in the back of the car, and I only refound it recently. I think that's all my nonfiction recently acquired books that we're going to go over today. I have gotten through quite a big pile now, so hopefully we will not have to do another recently acquired books for a long time. Let me know if you've read any of these nonfiction books. Let me know what your favorite style of nonfiction is. Do you love memoirs? Do you love biographies? Do you love books about certain subjects like baseball or Native American studies? Do you love books that are informative and instructional, or do you like books that are kind of formatted like a story? Let me know what your favorite kind of nonfiction is in the comments below, and I'll see you in the next one. Thanks so much. Bye.